Liking anime used to be a poor social choice, but then something changed. From cringy cosplay, awkward Naruto run to anime characters with Dolce & Gabbana. In 2023, anime pulled in a record-shattering $21 billion globally. More than half of that came from outside Japan. It looked like anime had finally arrived. But this kind of revolution didn't just happen overnight. How was the industry even surviving before all this? What really happened during COVID?
Fire Nation attack!
Was it just COVID? No, it wasn't. Who were the players? And how are they keeping up the momentum now after the anime boom? Anime wasn't supposed to win, but somehow, it kinda did. In 2020, anime practically went on a boom overnight. Global demand for anime doubled up, making it one of the fastest growing content genres of the pandemic era. Yes, anime was that special during the pandemic. But make no mistake, that wasn't luck, because long before anime went viral, Japan and the industry went through hell to pave the road there. Let's start the story from the early 2000s. Back in the early 2000s, even in Japan itself, the word otaku, it wasn't something quirky. Otaku was code for creepy, shut in, mentally unstable. Otaku culture was seen as defiant, dangerous. Look, it's definitely not export material. But this quote-unquote defiance, they had one superpower. They spent money. A lot of it. They were loyal, passionate, and blissfully unafraid of financial ruin. So Japan did what any nation would do in that situation. They planned to milk it on a whole grander scale. So in 2008, officials started testing the waters. And one of the most well-known experiments was appointing Doraemon, yes, the blue droid head cat, everyone's childhood, as anime ambassador. It was kind of awkward, especially when they started pushing Doraemon in countries that didn't even know who he was. Which kind of tell you everything you need to know about the state of this entire initiative. And then by 2013, they went all in. Cool Japan was born. The Japanese government poured 50 billion yen into promoting anime, manga, food, fashion, you name it. The mission, make Japan cool globally. And if the section title didn't spoil it already, it bombed hard. By 2020, Cool Japan had a 30.9 billion yen deficit. High-profile projects tanked. Some initiatives were so bad that even Japanese citizens turned against it. It became a meme. But here's the twist. It didn't totally fail. Because not everything is about numbers. Cool Japan did something subtle but powerful. It validated anime. Officially, a culture once dismissed even by its own country as cringe was now a government-backed asset. The impact from that was huge because that validation unlocked doors. Suddenly, studios could justify international collabs because from that martyr project of Cool Japan, at least they know that overseas fans exist and also can spend money. And companies like Sentai Filmworks, which got support from Cool Japan early on, ended up building distribution pipelines that helped shape anime's global growth. Cool Japan fumbled the execution, that's true. Their strategy was all over the place, also true, but it paved the runway. Look, there's no way we can call Cool Japan a success, and honestly, reading about Cool Japan is funny and concerning. But there were undeniable positives. And now it was up to the private sector to fly the plane. And when the pandemic hit, they did just that. So here's the thing. During the pandemic, it felt like everyone suddenly discovered anime. People were suddenly binging Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, Death Note for the first time, which raises the question, why anime? Why not tennis, golf, or I don't know, The Flash probably? Unfortunately for us, the answer to that gets a little uncomfortable. There were two main reasons. The first one is what I call content readiness. So first, anime was ready, like stupidly ready. In 2020, Naruto had 720 episodes. One Piece had over 900 episodes. Hunter x Hunter had 148. And that's just the essentials. So sure, anime had a fault of bingeable content. Rather too much if I'm being honest here, but here's an uncomfortable fact beyond that. While most of the global entertainment industry slammed on the brakes in 2020, anime kept going. In 2019, Japan's anime industry released 419 individual anime properties. In 2020, that dropped to 351, a roughly 16% dip. But by 2021, it jumped right back to 412. Now, let's compare that to worldwide. Film production dropped from around 9,200 films in 2019 to just 5,400 in 2020. A 40% collapse. So yeah, anime's momentum looked impressive on paper, and it truly was impressive. But it came at a cost. Director Takashi Watanabe, known for How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom and also many other works, he even tweeted during the pandemic.
Will they not understand until animation workers too begin to die, one after another?
Look, sure, Japan had low percentage of cases compared to other countries, they wore masks regularly even before COVID, many animation staff could work remotely, and there were delays. But still, people were confused, anxious, afraid, voice actors were sick. But no, just like Takashi Watanabe said in his tweet,
though I understand, this isn't a matter for production assistants or production desk workers to decide.
So yeah, anime just kept going, even though they probably shouldn't. And that's how anime managed to offer not just backlog, but also fresh weekly content where everything else was paused. Which led to the second reason. The Outliers. The mega hits that pulled people in. The first one is really clear. Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, a film that didn't just break records in Japan, it became the highest grossing film in the world in 2020. 500 million at the global box office during a pandemic. It was the moment anime proved it could dominate the big screen globally. And that was just one arc. The series had so much more, ready for new audiences. And after that, our second outlier, Attack on Titan. Of course, by 2021, Attack on Titan was the most in-demand TV show in the United States, 60 times the attention of an average show. Its episodes trended globally every week. And these two anime, it's safe to say that they created cultural moments. But even that's not the whole story. Because anime is not a TV show genre, it's a culture, which means to understand anime's true global breakout, we need to look beyond TV shows, beyond movies, and well, the next part of this story isn't even from Japan. And even though I hate to give you brain aneurysm, we need to talk about Genshin Impact. For those who don't know, Genshin Impact was so big at its peak, it was practically a monopoly, like nothing else like it. But in a broader picture, Genshin also shows the world how strong waifu marketing actually is. So, Genshin was first launched at September 2020, just a month before Demon Slayer Mugen Train premiered in Japan. It looks like anime, it feels like anime, but most people still dismissed it as Breath of the Wild clone with jiggle physics. In another word, another money grab that won't last long. Honestly, we should really shut up back then because all the remarks we made just helping Genshin got bigger, and bigger. The thing about Genshin is like, I don't know if it's luck or what, but Genshin's release time was just divine. It's practically a miracle. Really good time to join the rise of anime media. But there's so much more to Genshin than just luck. It's free, it ran on your toaster, it was top-tier innovation gamble from MiHoYo the developer, waifus and husbandos for every taste, and it's also a full entertainment package. The story is so digestible you could follow it half asleep. Genshin creators do PvP mode in real life, and recently, some of their English voice actors attacked the fanbase. A full gacha-powered Skinner box, with extra spicy entertainment DLC for free. Absolute cinema. But why am I talking about this? Well, because gaming is massive. Let's compare. In 2023, basically the peak of anime, the global anime industry was valued at around 29 billion USD. Not bad. But gaming, 196 billion. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. So by winning big in gaming, anime visuals broke into a completely different and massive audience. And it's easier to imagine the impact when you know the sheer number of fans that the two mediums share. It's estimated that 90% of Crunchyroll users also identify as gamers. Anime fans are 1.5 times more likely to be at least weekly gamers. So through games like Genshin, an entire generation of players got exposed to anime's art, tropes, storytelling without even watching a single episode. And maybe after that they gonna enjoy some episodes. You can totally say, hey, if you enjoy Wuthering Waves, for example, you're likely also gonna enjoy Solo Leveling. And 100 girlfriends that really love you. Okay, but the main point is, combine all those factors and starting from 2021, anime started to show up everywhere. The science of anime had become mainstream finally, popped up. But before we talk about the signs, we first need to ask, what does mainstream even mean nowadays? In a personalized media world, it's really hard to define that. Back then, it was really simple. If something aired on national or international TV, it was mainstream. And when something became mainstream, big money started moving around these attention grabbers. Today, I still work in marketing agency, and honestly, we straight up never talk about whether these things are mainstream or not. Honestly, we'd rather talk about weekly trends, but there's a very simple observation you can do to define if something's mainstream or not. Just watch where the corpos go. What I mean by corporation is, of course, it's those top-of-mind brands with familiarity to their name. For example, let's go with McDonald's. So, McDonald's and anime had a one-sided relationship back then. McDonald's often shown in anime with a slightly altered name, and sometimes it's as McDonald's. But this time, looking at the anime boom, there's no way they're gonna let that go. So in early 2024, McDonald's literally turned the fake anime parody McDonald's into reality. They temporarily rebranded as McDonald's, complete with anime-inspired packaging, special menu items, and even original anime shorts from Studio Pierrot. But if you think, well, that's probably just Japan being Japan, think again. This was a massive global campaign spanning more than 30 countries. Even McDonald's US marketing chief openly said, anime is a huge part of today's culture, which you can totally translate it to, if we don't cash in, someone else will, and I ain't gonna disappoint Papa Makudo. But it didn't stop there, because levels above that, enter football. Just to give you context, football is a cultural titan, comedy included, because we have Manchester United. Dominic Solanke's anime-inspired goal celebrations, at first it went viral, and then it also got an official coverage from the Premier League, the richest football league on the planet. And we see this everywhere now. Anime aesthetics have become mainstream, quirky, colorful, undeniably cool. Now, if we could just ease up on ecchi and isekai shows, really. But speaking of those kinds of anime, it's really clear that anime needs to evolve. Honestly, it's just natural for an industry to adapt with all new attention and audiences. But so far, we only talked about external changes. But what's about changes within the community itself? How has all this spotlight transformed anime fans and creators? Well, to put it lightly, significantly. And the hallmark of that is, in 2023, one anime did something fans thought was impossible and changed anime forever. So let's talk about Frieren, the new anime darling that uniquely broke all the rules of hype anime. It doesn't chase darker themes to bait edgy teens, power scaling, flashy battles. That's not the point of Frieren, but still it became the new face of anime almost overnight. The highest rated anime of all time, it's the anime to watch. Mainly because we know that popularity doesn't equal great storytelling in anime. Look, I'm not gonna pretend to be objective here, and I'm definitely not gonna shut up about Frieren. I love Frieren. I've made 200 videos about it on this channel. The only reason I haven't made more is because the manga is on hiatus and, well, I kinda ran out of ideas, but whatever. Anyway, there's something important about the rise of Frieren. Look, the quality of the show is undeniable, but pretending that Frieren rose to the top purely on merit, without acknowledging the timing that anime in 2023 had a flood of new eyes, that'd be dishonest. And honestly, with all those new audiences, Frieren had to do double duty, satisfy existing anime fans and win over newcomers. But judging by the ratings and the buzz, I would say Madhouse absolutely delivered a masterclass. It's the kind of show both long-time anime fans and new viewers can genuinely enjoy. That's what Frieren represents. But this video isn't just about my love for the comfy elf. There's a bigger reason why I'm bringing Frieren into this conversation. Because anime has changed, for better and for worse. The positive from this is, of course, the quality bar has been raised. Higher expectations usually bring higher funding. Usually is the keyword here, but also international competition. Even China is producing god-tier anime now. Netflix is in the picture. There's no room for sloppiness anymore for Japan anime industry. But that also means better products for us, consumers. But the negative, here's what I personally really hate. The formulaic approach. Look, we know for a while that animation quality sits on a high pedestal for anime fans. I get the feeling that many people think as long as it looks good, people are gonna watch it. So the formula becomes whatever story plus fancy animations equals profit. And it often works, especially when we talk about popularity. That's the scary part. It's like a big portion of communities okay with low quality stories. Because hey, who cares about good story, am I right? Honestly, I hate thinking about it. It's bad for everyone. Because in the long run, anime will truly become kids' cartoon with half-assed stories related to leveling up. And just imagine, to keep that production cost healthy while keeping those fancy animations, how do you think the higher-ups in the anime industry will react? AI is of course in the picture. So that's why, give us more Frieren, more The Apothecary Diaries, stories that can actually stay in your head overnight. Look, anime is not some messed up sport where animators need to break their own records in speed drawing. Let them see their families. Honestly, we need to make it a chant or something. It's an exciting time to be an anime fan and to make anime content, honestly, but this is only the beginning. We've seen so many Japan-esque stuff now in the international stage. Japan musicians, VTubers. But related to all this, if there's one big player that I haven't talked about yet, even though I really should, is Crunchyroll. I did some research on it and oh god, honestly, it's such a train wreck. So if this video performs well, we'll talk about Crunchyroll, the black sheep of anime culture.